been through it. They've done grapes and they realize they hate doing grapes and they can never look at a grape ever again. But they want to do these other things. And in the back of their mind, there are these other things that are saying, hey, try me. I'm in caustic. Try me. I'm photography. Try me. I'm mixed media. And they're painting hyper-realistic grapes because that's what they thought they needed to do when they first started painting. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give artists to like recover from that? Like,
hello, my name is Brandi Hofer. Welcome to the Color Me Happy podcast. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm very grateful for your time. You are going to feel so empowered with our episodes and our guests because they live a truly passionate life. They're excited about what they do. They know that creativity matters and that your art matters and that it matters to following your passion in life to ultimately see your everyday ordinary as extraordinary. These episodes are almost unedited, very raw, so it'll feel like you're sitting down for coffee with a friend. Feel free to reach out anytime at Brandi Hofer Studios on Instagram and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for being here.
Obviously, artists and creatives are going to love what you have to say. That's what you do for work. So describe your business, who you are, and what you offer, essentially.
Sure. Yeah. So I run a business called Dazed Confucius with a team of other consultants. And we primarily do one-on-one consultations with artists in all levels of their career about whatever they want and whatever they're looking for at that time. Sometimes that might be getting into a gallery or just breaking into the commercial art scene. Other times it is museums and artist statements and writing grants and all of that. And then a good chunk of the time, it's actually just about their practice and the work that they're doing, what can be improved, what is working, what isn't working. And we look at that and we try to build on the conceptual elements, but we also try to build on the technical elements. So just giving your standard critique and feedback and a plan and strategizing for whatever the next goal is. Actually, a big part of the time is just establishing what are some good goals and where they are on the, as I call it, like the mall map, the you are here, and what store you're looking for. So the mall map locator. We also do a bunch of little things like build websites, contracts, we do copywriting, editing, ghostwriting, and catalog building, things like that. So
all the things that people don't realize are part of an art business.
Yeah, the kind of one-stop shop components of becoming a professional artist.
Mm-hmm. So individualized care, essentially.
Yes, yeah, you got it. And the way that we kind of like spread the word is usually through seminars that we give, usually in person around the world. And that's kind of how we've built our clientele up over the last, I guess, 13 years doing this. We don't do a ton of marketing. We do podcasts and chats like this. And that's just kind of how word of mouth, how it's been.
Yeah. And like, honestly, you've stayed busy just doing that, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yes. Very busy. So, and it's been lovely. It's kind of, I think, the best, referrals and people telling people is kind of the best, I think, sort of one of the best ways to market.
Yeah. Well, in general, I feel like a lot of artists, they start out and they're like, oh man, I'd love to paint every day. And I don't think anyone quite realizes like what goes into those steps of either going full time or starting out or creating your portfolio, having like even like something as simple as an email subscribers list. I remember when I met you, I was still afraid to send emails, like deathly afraid of that newsletter just because of like a spelling error or whatever. And then so that frozen component like of overwhelm,
100%
hold.
Yeah, big time for sure. And also, I think people feel like they need to have a lot of that stuff in place before they meet, but actually quite the opposite. It's sort of better to have somebody tell you what's coming up and what's involved and what the next steps are, rather than trying to do it all and then do it wrong maybe, and then having to undo it all. So yeah, I do think people sort of feel like, no, that's not for me. That's for somebody who's much more established or ahead, but quite the opposite. In fact, I think, most of the time we prefer to see people earlier on before they have those things set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they had like some form of, maybe they do now. I don't know. I'm not up on what's going on in art school, but your advice and how you take artists essentially through like a ringer of, I'm sure you have like templates and a system, and like I wish you were teaching in an education system. Like it's honestly, it's like 80% of your career.
Oh, 100. Yeah, totally. It's actually why I have a job. It's because they still don't offer that in art school. And it's kind of how we got started. As I said, like about 12 to 16 years ago, I was working at galleries, as I have been for most of my adult life, and people just came in approaching the gallery the wrong way.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I would tell them and tell them and tell them, and then after a while, I was just like, "Hey, does everybody want to come just one time, so I can say it one time, to navigating the art industry," is what I called it. And then 200 people showed up, just people telling people.
Unreal.
And then some people missed it and said, "Oh, could you do it again?" And then, I started teaching it at a university here, similar topics. And so I think it was just a real need. Honestly, it was just responding to something that people desperately wanted.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's so many factors. Can we talk about the start of your business and
Sure.
how you came up with that name?
So after, as I mentioned, I've lived in Toronto, New York, and Vancouver. Our offices are here and in Victoria. And I worked in galleries, both public galleries, like museums, and commercial galleries, since I was 18. When I was in university and then in grad school, and not for any other reason than kind of, when you get a job, it begets the next job because you have experience from the last one. And so I just continued to climb that ladder. And then I ended up at the most logical spot, which is one of the, I think, top galleries in Canada. And I always knew that was sort of my intended destination. And then after I got there and worked there for a few years, this started happening where, it happened the entire time, but it started happening more and more, probably because it was such a recognized gallery. But artists started coming in and approaching the gallery with all the wrong things and in completely the wrong ways, that would essentially have shot themselves in the foot had they come to a different gallery and had they come to a different person. So I found myself saying the same things again and again. And then I put on that seminar. And then Langara College here asked if I would teach a class essentially in it. So I did that in the evenings. I still worked at the gallery during the day. And on the weekends, I would do these consults as sort of just like a favor to certain artists who would say, "Hey, would you mind? Would you come and take a look at what I'm doing and just give me your feedback?" So I do that on weekends. And then for a long, long time, much longer than I care to admit, I just assumed, even though I liked it more, and even though it logically made more sense in my life to do the consults full time and to start the business, I just felt, I think, the standard reasons you feel nervous about starting your own business and leaving.
Famous artists.
That's it. Like, yeah, leaving an institution that you've kind of worked so hard to get to for a while, and
you had made it.
That's it.
Exactly.
Exactly. And then, there's the bigger part, which was the fact that there was imposter syndrome there. The job of artist consultant or artist advisor didn't exist at that time. Now it's dime a dozen, but then it was not a thing. And at least to me, Instagram was not a thing. So, and I thought that people only cared about what I had to say or only cared about what I thought because of the gallery. And of course, later on, I found that the second I left the gallery, nobody even really knew or cared that I'd worked there. Nobody, that wasn't part of their rationale at all when talking to me. And most people don't even know like that I just assumed that it was credentials that really made them care or made people seek me out. And I do think that does count for something, of course, but it wasn't everything. And I thought it was everything. And that kind of thinking and that kind of fear prevented me from starting Dazed Confucius, for years before I actually did take the leap.
And so you listed some of the things like self-doubt and hesitation, etc. How do you guide artists through those like creative blocks and self-doubt in your consulting?
Yeah, I think a lot of that just naturally comes out during our critique and feedback. I think if an artist can recognize that there are strengths and weaknesses, which for the most part, most artists do. I honestly think that power comes from that. Confidence comes from having feedback on your work and I say I emphasize this, like filtered feedback, as in feedback from people that you trust, and that you respect, rather than people that you don't know at all, and that don't know you. So I do think that kind of building up that relationship, that trust to be able to speak to an artist's work is something that helps with self-doubt. I think when somebody says, I know what I'm talking about, I see thousands and thousands of this, like things every week, this is good, this needs some work. And if you can accept both those things as actual strengths, like, good, I'm glad some things need some work,
but constructive and honest. I actually do recall now back to one of our conversations about, it was the swimmer painting, and I had like come at it with black oil, and you were like, what happened to your painting? And I ended up pressure washing it like 7 times to get that off and like starting over. But like it was, and then my kids, like, we just poured paint all over, but left the like oil portrait, and it somehow stayed through the whole process. And then it was like light and bright and springy, and like the swimmer should be in a summer series show. And so big, gorgeous, amazing painting. But yeah, it like, you have these influences, or you're like, I'm going to do this. And you're like, whoa. And so when someone's like coming at you being like, this was going well, and now it's not, just as a full honesty. And that was like our 3rd session, and it worked out so well, like.
I think it's very echo chambery, as you know, like it's isolating being an artist. And, as much as it takes a while to listen to your intuition, and it takes a while to hear your gut tell you this or that, but it also, sometimes your gut also tells you need another opinion. Or somebody that you, as I said, somebody that you trust and that is looking at other work out there. I think that's just a big part of it. I think that we have a really privileged position where we get to see, what's happening in France, and what's happening in South Africa, and what's happening in Mexico City, and then what's happening here. And I call it something in the water. And sometimes we're very privileged to be able to see that something in the water that streams around the whole world and, lights it up. So when you're touching on something that I think is resonating universally or globally. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And you can also see something that someone, like when you said we're so isolated, we're in our own heads and spaces. And when you see something someone can't, and I specifically remember some more advice where you're like, this is working really well with custom artwork, portraits. So, and it was just right before COVID. And honestly, your advice was so good that I got burnt out from painting and like had 130 artworks in 1 year go. And then I was like, okay, you're in it. So I didn't see that I should increase prices. I didn't see that I was burnt out. And then of course, started a podcast, wrote a book, started our online art education and murals and all these things because of that one pivotal moment, which I'm not saying that was bad advice. It was good advice because it showed me that maybe that painting wasn't for me all the time, like 8 paintings a month or whatever it ended up being. And creating collections at the same time. Like, it's just like, that's too much out of your creative well. Let's like
Diversify.
Diversify your income. So let's talk about that. Like, what advice can you give for artists who aren't in the position of, because that was mostly for me, that was custom art orders, which can burn artists out, let's be honest.
Of course.
Yeah. So how do you support artists in diversifying their income if they can't be supported by just selling art alone?
Sure. Yeah, I think that is, we see just one-on-one myself, I see about a little over 1,000 artists a year, one-on-one.
That's a lot.
And, David, my business partner, he's also the same. So together, we're able to, I think, get a pretty good gauge on where the economy is, where artists are in relation to that. And most artists need some type of secondary income. And whether that is self-generated or they're in a situation that allows them to make work and not worry about certain other things, whether they have a dual income household, there's a lot of things out there. But I would say, maybe 15%, so a smaller percent of our clients are completely full-time, self-sufficient selling artists, and that ain't bad,
No.
So a couple of things I guess I'd recommend. One is that I do think a common myth, I mean, we were talking about an email you sent me, just like what are some common myths in the art world, or I call them hot takes. I have quite a few of those. One of them is I don't recommend your second job, if you need a second job, to be related to art. I find that ends up consuming and taking up a lot of that same mental bandwidth and emotional bandwidth that it takes to create your own work. So whether usually clients become art teachers, or usually they become art teachers. That's a big
is like so draining.
That's it, right? And that's draining of the same pool. You're taking from the same pool. I think it logically might make sense because you're like, oh, I'll keep making my practice because I'll be in the same ballpark. It doesn't work that way. You're in the same ballpark, you're playing a different sport, and you're tired. You're still tired at the end of the day. I do think something like working at an art store, that's different, like a materials art store, that's great. In fact, you have endless access to materials and you're making a secondary income and you can still make your work. But
contacts, community.
Totally.
Also, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, working, sure, in a museum, something art adjacent, but not fully in the making of artwork. I find that can be intensely draining for artists that want to produce their own work when they're helping other people do it. So I would recommend something in, ideally, an industry that's completely unrelated.
Yeah, that's great advice. I want you to share, if you can think of it on the spot, one piece of advice that you wish artists would ignore when they hear it? Like a common thing that people say to artists who maybe don't know the industry or that artists would just disregard.
Okay, good. I wonder, Brandi, do you do editing on the podcasts?
Nope.
Okay. They just are as they are. Okay.
I do a little bit, but because sometimes like my kids or my husband like walks in and whatever, or we lose sound. But yeah, it's pretty raw and people appreciate it. I think it's like having a coffee with a friend. And
totally.
yeah.
Okay. I can think of actually.
Sorry, that was a new question. I didn't include it in your notes.
Oh no,
so
no, that's okay.
prepare.
Yeah, I think it's nice talking off the cuff. And so I think I actually can think of a few. Here's one. And I don't know if it's something that people say to artists, but certainly something that artists believe, which is the hold and release method is the only method of selling and showing artwork. The hold and release being I make a body of work or a collection, I'm using air quotes, and then I hold it and I market it and I put it out there on generally Instagram at 9 a.m. on February 3rd. This series is going to drop. Go and get it. That's called the hold and release. And that is by no means the only way of selling artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of clients come to us. That is Instagram. That is Instagram, quote unquote, ruining the art world. And I think that is a big statement. I also realize that's a hot take. It just is something that did not exist before this. Of course, people made collections and of course they showed them and put them out there and then people purchased them, but not in this regimented way that it exists now, where folks think that they can only build and make work in collections and they can only drop it like they're dropping a record on a certain day at a certain time.
And then the pressure of selling out and the feeling of resentment and disappointment and like, why did I do all this work? And I sold 3 paintings or 1 or whatever, right? Like,
it absolutely is a great model. It works great. It just doesn't work great for everybody. And that's what I'm getting at. I think to each their own, and it's kind of been hammered home as the one and only way. Also, many folks don't make work in collections. Some people just make work, and it doesn't fall neatly into these nice little bundles of 12 paintings. Again, that is a fantastic model. It's just not for everybody. And I think it's very loud. And so it seems like it is for everybody. And exactly, if you do not have the following, if you do not paint and make work or photograph or sculpt in that way, it does not work. So yeah. I find that has been really, we call this other method the drip method, and that's just something that we've come up with, and it's just dripping the painting, or I call them paintings only because that's just, I see a painting behind you and you're a painter, Brandi. So like, it could be any form of artwork, but that's just when you make a single piece and put it out there every time you make it. After you're finished making it, that is one way of doing it. You can also do a blend where you put out a certain collection and then throughout the year you also drip individual works throughout. So there's just so many other ways to make work and be cohesive. I think that's another slightly hot take I have, which is that, again, Instagram and the internet has really hammered home this need to be cohesive as quickly and as aggressively as possible to have a brand. And while that is, again, true, it has been severely damaging for folks that aren't ready to do that yet and still want to explore and are still interested in different media, different techniques, different styles, different subject matter, and feel like they now only can just do textured paintings of grapes, and I have to be that grape painter, they must know me as grapes, and that's not wrong necessarily. It's just too early. And what we find time after time is that artists get burnt out from that style. They get bored of it, and they end up feeling exactly as you said, that type of that resentment, that disappointment, that sense of failure from building up this clientele who loves grapes and then abandoning that style because they're just not into it. It doesn't serve them anymore. And that is because they locked in that particular style too early and prematurely before exploring other things.
Absolutely. And you need to experiment. You need to, like, we're creatives. We thrive on experimentation and building and growing and goals, and and like, for sure I'm an ADHDer, and like I need that like constant thrill, and I need that variety. Like I don't just like making work anymore. I like making work in my community and talking to people and making an impact. And like, I think, and we change as people. Like I was also, when I was painting, a full-time parent. And then there was COVID in there and I got locked inside. So yeah, I was painting. And then you transition. I love the podcast because I get to connect with creatives all over the globe. And then I also like teaching, but not too much. And I like workshops and retreats and running our little art academy with the youth and youth artists. But like, it's like little takes from each little section that keeps me motivated, keeps me going. And by the end of summer, I'm toast for murals. Like, I don't want to paint another mural, right? We did 3 murals this summer, and murals are very hard. I was talking to Rosso, what's Rosso's last name? In the UK, but she's from Sicily. She does those like oil portraits. You can't remember every artist, but she's like, she does big retreats because she's from Sicily. And she's like, the hotel owner in Morocco wants me to paint a mural while all these ladies and I are on this retreat. And I said, no. Murals are not a vacation. And I was like, I agree. Murals are effing hard. And, so much goes into it, and it always takes 3 times the time you think it's going to take. And yeah, so I said, I'll come to Morocco and I'll paint the mural and talk to the ladies. And you guys go tour and I'll just paint. I'll take it.
I think
so.
And you're like a perfect example of, imagine, all those years ago, I was just like, swimmers, just do swimmers forever.
Yeah.
There'd be no chance.
Or portraits forever. Like
even
just,
portraits forever.
Yeah,
but imagine it was portraits of swimmers forever. Like if we got hyper specific about it, there'd be no way you would maybe do that for a little while. And then I don't know, like all these other parts of you that want to teach, that want to work with the community, that want to do murals, that want to travel, that want to speak to other artists and share, those parts would be completely stifled and need to get out somehow, and it would end up taking a toll on your painting practice. So and that's just what's happened so many times.
Do you see that in artists?
Oh my gosh, like the burnout, you mean the rejection of one type of thing? Absolutely. Usually we see them in the aftermath. I actually find, I have a little bit of like light a light bitterness, if you can't tell, towards a lot of these things that sort of came out after COVID. For as wonderful as social media has been, and there's so many, it giveth and it taketh away. And so it has kind of, unfortunately, really heavily influenced that kind of thinking. As I mentioned, that sort of hold and release. This is the way I've done it, so this is the way you can do it. This is the only way to do it. You need to have one style, one brand, and you need to sell it this way. That's never been louder, than it was in these last 5 years, I think. And we have seen the after effects of that, the negative after effects of that, through a lot of our clients that we see who don't get why they followed the model perfectly, somebody else's model that they've taken. So that's another kind of little bit of a hot take there too, where, yeah, I think that an artist sharing their journey and saying, I did it this way, you can do it this way too, is lovely, as long as that person's style is similar, but usually it's not. So, then they come and they wonder why they've done everything right, again, air quotes, correct, and why it hasn't worked for them. And then we need to kind of unpack that and go backwards and start from scratch again. And it's defeating. So it's something that I kind of find we're often picking up the pieces from with artists.
Yeah. People don't realize it until they've already been through it.
They've already been through it. They've done grapes and they realize they hate doing grapes and they can never look at a grape ever again. But they want to do these other things. And in the back of their mind, there are these other things that are saying, hey, try me. I'm in caustic. Try me. I'm photography. Try me. I'm mixed media. And they're painting hyper-realistic grapes because that's what they thought they needed to do when they first started painting. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give artists to like recover from that? Like go paint with someone at a workshop, go try something else. Like what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's a lot of undoing a lot of those things. What I always say is that all those things that they did learn, if they, let's say, followed a model where it's like, first you have to build a series, second you have to photograph the series, third you have to build a website, fourth then you start your social media account, then you start doing ads and that stuff. All of it is useful. Like, let's just put that in a package and let's just put it on the shelf for a second. It's not going anywhere. When you come back to it, it'll still be there. So none of that is lost. That's all still really, really useful information. We just have to make sure that the product is good, and the product is not good right now. Like the artwork isn't there yet. Your skill level isn't there yet. The thing you're marketing is not good yet. And so we kind of have to go back to the source of it and take a look at that and say, okay, well, this is working, this is not working. But really what you need to try, you're doing this with alcohol inks. What you really should be using is, soft acrylics, or you should be using, cold water dyes instead of this. This is, have you considered using spray paint instead of using this? And no, the answer is of course no, because they had to lock in what they wanted to do early on. So they didn't have a chance to, what I call in the tech world, fail fast. They haven't had a chance to fail fast. And that's really what they need to do, to kind of go back and do, I know there's so many different exercises we have, but, pick 4 different new media, work with them for a month and eliminate one of them and pick up a new one in its place. Like, there's so many other kinds of, they need to try these things. It's pretty much putting themselves through art school in a fast track, intense way, where
fill a sketchbook with garbage.
Yeah, pretty much. We need
a whole bunch of different garbage.
That's it. And I'll say to them, we need quantity, not quality here. I need quantity. Like, I need to see this next time. It's just for you and I, so we can just see it together. You do not have to put it out there.
Not some big things, but like daily little things.
I need to see.
That's what collage is for me personally as a creative.
I need to see some garbage.
I can always cut and glue some shit and I'm happy.
You got it.
Right?
You got it. I need to see that.
It's
stuff.
not for anyone. Or
It's
just
not for anything.
Sketching with my kids in our sketchbooks and our little sketchbook, which I give away like for free.
Yep.
Because I think it's important to support other creatives in knowing that, yes, you go for a walk, collect flowers, press them, like something so simple, but it seems like it takes like leaps for people to get there because they see this perfect structured system. And actually a lot of online art education systems are churning out these people who all paint the same. And yes, it worked for this superstar, and it might work for you, but it's probably not going to work for 1,000 of you. at the different levels that, so you're seeing this. I actually had someone I talked to the other day, and she's like, I took this thing and then it was in this style, and it took me like years to come off that. And she's like, I really love this like primitive, like block painting, not the whimsical whatever, but this primitive block painting. Here it is. I put it on my site. I'm really proud of it. I'm painting because it makes me happy. So I said, those are amazing. You can tell you're happy, which I'm sure you would have given exact similar advice. And I said, if you're interested, but you don't have to, I don't know if you want to make money from your art or what your plan is because you're working full time, or what your partner does. So many factors, like you mentioned earlier, go into this. But like, these color blockings would look amazing on a wall somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you, see if you like check this out, see if that's an interest to you, how to paint a mural, like,
That's it.
and
Exactly.
she's thinking about it. She's stewing on it. She's excited about it. And it's her style that she's happy doing.
It's,
you
that's it. Exactly. And I think that it's totally fine to take a class or classes from a particular artist to paint in their style. Inevitably that will happen, but make sure you take a bunch of them then from people in other styles, right? Like it's totally fine, but take a bunch of different ones so that you have tried different kinds of things, rather than locking in that one particular style. As you said, that inevitably later you kind of have to undo or get out of. That takes years to get out of.
years. And it's like, it's sad. It's like, it's hard to watch someone go through, because I have known her for a few years, and it was just like, oh, darn, like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. And it's, usually when I see somebody new, I'll say, have you taken this from this person? Because I can tell, because it looks like that. It looks like they've taught you how to do these things, and now your work looks
Let's say birch
like
trees.
their
You
work.
learned how to paint birch trees.
Yeah. And it's like,
common class,
that's it. So make sure that's totally fine that you learn from the superstar birch tree artist, but make sure you take one from somebody else. Or ideally, maybe don't just understand that when you take a class from a superstar artist, they are very much coming at it from their own perspective, which is great. And that is what they should do. They can only speak to their own experience, but understand that it is their experience. And if your work does not look like their work, you may not benefit as much as they have from that, right? So,
and they've been doing it like 20 years, and you're not there.
And there was something in the water maybe at that time. Birch trees were the thing 20 years ago, but it may not be now. So all that is just, I guess all of it is really buyer beware all the time, filtering your feedback and making sure you're getting a diverse, different voices coming so that you can pick and choose what serves you and let go of the things that don't.
Yeah. And would you say like the biggest thing is just showing up for yourself in your practice, like routinely?
I think if you're doing anything that's advancing your practice and your education, your skill level, you've already done, like, that's more than half the battle. That's huge. I think that is the next level. That's something that everybody should be intensely proud of.
Yeah. Okay, some fun little questions to end the podcast.
Sure.
I appreciate your time.
Oh, sure.
What's your go-to coffee order when prepping for your art consults during the day?
My go-to coffee order. Yeah. Okay. I'm a very simple gal, so I like a classic drip coffee. I could drink.
You're like an old man.
That's it. Exactly. Give me a pot. I just want a pot brewing. I want to drink 4 or 5 cups of these, of the grocery store coffee, brewing, not gas station coffee, grocery store coffee, like a nice grocery store.
Level up.
Yeah, one level up. I want a drip. But if I want to be a little fancier, I'll do a French press. I really like a French press of just standard coffee. But if I'm having something a little bit different on a different day, I'll have a chai. latte.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Love it. If you could have dinner with any artist, dead or alive,
Oh my gosh.
who's at the table?
Yeah, I think alive, I would love to. Alive would be probably Cindy Sherman. I would really love to just she's very shy though, so I don't know if she'd like to be there. So that's also another part of it. But yeah, I think I'd have to go with Cindy Sherman.
Nice. I don't know if you'll be able to think of this one. I could. Worst art trend that you secretly love.
Ooh, like a guilty pleasure.
I
Worst art.
guess, yeah.
What's yours, Brandi?
Uh Gosh, I don't know. I save so much on my phone. It's hard. I don't secretly love anything. I'm a very open person.
Yeah, I
Like
don't think that the pleasure is guilty for me. I'm not that
no,
guilty about
no. I'm not like I love seeing people like hop up on those lifts and like do like who did I talk to? Karen. It was a Karen Sue. And she had just done a 30,000 square foot koi fish in Taiwan.
it.
And you're like, oh, I want to do that. But also like it takes years of planning. So it like you're like, also I don't want to do that. Like you're kind of jealous and you want to do it, but like you're also like, well, once you know what it takes, you're like, actually probably best. Yeah, so that's like the jealousy, I guess I keep more to myself and try to spin it as a positive thing.
Right. Yeah, I think, and that maybe is more of just like recognizing how much work goes into it rather than
Yeah.
And
Instead, I just talk to Karen and invite her on the podcast
There
and
you
see
go.
how she did it.
There we go. That's good enough, right?
And she was awesome. Yeah.
And our trend, I would say that there's a lot of things in the world of craft that I think is kind of
Ooh.
like unfortunately undervalued that I think is fantastic. Just like any kind of craft materials that get a shorter end of the stick from
I'm there with you.
paint
Like a
to
really good mug.
anything, like any kind of or found material kitsch. I don't secretly love that. I really do
Just
love
love
it. So
it. Yeah.
and textile, like unfortunately there's just like there's so many materials that are considered craft that I think are fantastic. And I don't feel guilty about it. I think it's completely fine.
It should be showed. It should be, textile, like in different countries and stuff like that. Like on the street, you're like, this is wow, right?
And funny art. I think funny art is undervalued. Anything that has like comedy in it.
Which Danielle
sarcasm.
Kreisa does a good job of sharing in her newsletter.
100%. Yeah, Danielle's work is hilarious, and there's so many artists out there that I think just do wonderfully funny work that is unfortunately undervalued. So
this is not serious. Yeah, but it is serious. I just quoted that, but okay, last question. What's your guilty pleasure? Reality TV, junk journaling, or something that we wouldn't expect?
It's not reality TV. Junk journaling. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's
what is that?
I chat GPT this.
What is that?
Weird questions. Because sometimes I want to I want to hear people's especially there's going to be fans of you listening. So I wanted to give them like an intro perspective or insight in perspective into your life.
Yeah.
So what do you do to, I guess, unwind? Like, what do you?
Oh gosh. Yeah. And that's not guilty. I don't feel guilty. I do feel probably my guilty pleasure is like beige foods or like foods that are bad for you. Yeah. Food in general, which I don't feel that guilty about, but certainly like bad foods, from junk food to like, chips. Chips is like my weakness, and just generally beige colored foods. That's
amazing.
For sure my Achilles and my guilty pleasure, but also, YOLO, right?
Yeah. No, I know. Whenever I travel, because I live in a very small place in Canada, I always overfill on like, you're like, this coffee shop's amazing. This bakery's amazing. You're like, I must eat as many croissants that I find along the
That's
way
it. And I
here.
don't think I think that is how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that most of the time. You
No.
must do it to an excessive amount when you're there, right?
Yeah.
So
Supper later.
food, junk food, bad food, beige food.
Oh, I love it. Okay, where can everyone find you?
You can find us at dazedandconfucius.com. That's CONFUCIUS, Confucius. Or you can find us on Instagram at dazed.and.confucius, or just by Googling Pennylane Shen.
Yeah. And I love your industry insights, which you're doing on like Instagram and stuff like that. So artists and creatives should go check that out. And thank you for your time. Have the best day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, feel free to reach out on Instagram at Brandi Hofer Studios anytime. I'm happy to chat. That's where I sit. And I'm so glad you're here, and I cannot wait for you to dive in. So give us a like and subscribe, and check the rest of our channel.
If you want to feel empowered and inspired, like and subscribe for more. And if you want to get creative, check out all our art hacks on this channel.